Hello there, thanks a lot for coming by PosterCentral.com's video blog today. I'm Pete Howard. Boy, I've done some rare and historic posters in this blog, but this is about as incredibly historic as they get. The very first English Beatles concert poster, period. Wow. And it's from the Casbah Club in Liverpool, generally regarded as the birthplace of the Beatles. They played there a total of 44 times, most of them before they went to the Cavern Club. So the date on this poster, December 17th of 1960, and they were just back from their first trip to Hamburg, including the Kaiser color. This was their very first show back home under their new name, just the Beatles, not the Silver Beatles or anything else. Paul McCartney wasn't even playing bass yet. That was left to Stu Sutcliffe normally, but he was back in Germany, so Chas Newby was the bass player. Sutcliffe nursing an illness and hanging with Astrid Kircher in Hamburg until February, I believe. So you've got this, primitive hand-painted poster created by, well, two people actually, both closely tied to Pete Best, his mother, Mona Best, and his best friend and housemate, Neil Aspinall. That's right, created this poster. Well, that should really raise some eyebrows because, of course, Neil would become a lifetime employee and executive for the Beatles, eventually running their, Apple empire until his death in 2008. And here's Neil at age 18, creating their first ever concert poster of their very own with their, final name and using the word fabulous. Although, again, we don't know which words were drawn or painted by Neil and which were done by Mona. So this was the Fabulous Five, not the Fab Four yet. He had John, of course, Paul and George, drummer Pete Best, and bassist Chas Newby for just 4 shows up till the end of 1960. He was a chemistry student just off on Christmas break from college, right? And like McCartney, though, he was left-handed. In fact, let's give him a little love for a second and show you a vintage photo there of Chas Newby. You can see he's playing left-handed. And then you've got a more modern-day photo of Mr. Newby. So nice to give him a little pictorial shout out there. So as far as the word fabulous, the Beatles had been called the Fabulous Silver Beatles in newspaper ads earlier in 1960 during the summertime, so that superlative just seemed to sort of follow them for their entire career. The poster measures about 2 feet tall by 20 inches wide and was made on brown paper, which is now, as you can imagine, quite fragile. So all the words and numbers on this poster were written in early December 1960 before the show. But there is a little bit of superfluous drawing on here, such as this oblong right there, and you can see this oval going from, the entire top to bottom of the poster. Excuse me. That was done by a Best family child years later, perhaps the late 60s or even the 70s. Half of it has been erased by the poster's owner. I'm not the owner of this, I'm just privileged and honored to be able to blog it for you today. And the plan, of course, is to eventually get rid of all the later sketching on there and just have the original lettering. But I wanted to grab it and document it before it got all cleaned up and framed, just to show it to you so naked like this. And by the way, there's zero question of authenticity. It did come directly from the Best family. So let's come in for a closer look. So you've got the Fabulous with fabulous and little quote marks, and it's really nice that it's in red like that. And then Beatles is in blue, the only blue word on the poster. And this is paint, by the way. There was no such thing as magic markers yet. And then the details at the bottom, Saturday, 17th of December, 1 shilling admission. Interesting how, every letter on this poster is uppercase. There's not a single lowercase letter anywhere. So that's a grand total of 8 words. Wow. Well, I've already blogged the Quarryman poster from the Casbah from '59, and that was 4 words. So I guess less was more when it came to early Beatles concert poster advertising. So again, putting this thing now in historical perspective, the only older poster than this, with the name The Beatles on it, is one that you're very familiar with. In fact, I've already blogged the actual poster separately. But it's this gem from, you know, the Kaiserkeller in Hamburg, Germany in the fall of 1960. Now it does say October, November, and December on there, but December didn't happen. It all sort of fell apart at the end of November. So the Beatles, what did they do? Well, one or two at a time, they headed back to Liverpool. They were very much moping about, saying, well, is that it? It went great in Hamburg, but nothing's happening here. Are we done? Are we toast? I like one description of the mood said, it's like Hamburg had never happened. Wow. And another discouraging thing happened. Alan Williams, the man who gave the Beatles away, their first manager, had built his own top 10 club there in Liverpool, and the darn thing had burnt down before the Beatles could get back to it. That's crazy bad luck. And so, you know, Paul's dad even kicked him out of the house saying, get a job or don't come back. It looked really apparent the Beatles' job wasn't continuing. And so Paul took jobs as a delivery boy and a factory worker. But, you know, this gig was then arranged right here, December 17th, and John and George went to Paul's workplace and convinced him to quit his day job. And so, you know, without Stu, back in Germany, they grabbed Chas Newby for bass for just 4 groups, borrowed him from another local group. And, you know, Paul and Pete were using borrowed equipment, and Chas was playing a right-handed bass upside down. So they were quite the motley crew, but they made it happen. Now, from a poster collecting standpoint, it should be pointed out, the best book has this. There were other posters drawn up for this very show that said, direct from Hamburg, Germany. In fact, I show you a picture of one in the Quarryman video. And also, not to be confused, Beatles poster artist Tony Booth once devised this poster decades after the fact. And so this has, you know, nothing to do with originality. It's just a fun little fantasy piece. So, important to mention, though, in this blog. So, the Casbah had been remodeled, by the way. Instead of a bunch of little cubby holes that the Quarrymen had played in, there was now a big music room, which was really nice. And that really helped set the whole scene. So the big night arrived, and the opening act was not listed on this poster, Gene Day and the Django Beats. And then this quote-unquote new group from Germany came out, and a lot of patrons said, what? Those are just the Quarrymen guys. What's up with this? A lot of them actually expected a new group from Germany called the Beatles. So the room was abuzz and even divided. Half the fans were disappointed. You know, it's not a new German rock and roll band. But the other half were saying, like, wait, man, give them a chance. And boy, guess what? You know it. They came out and killed it. 500 hours on stage in Hamburg in just that first visit had created a major kick-ass rock and roll band. They probably opened with Paul screaming Long Tall Sally, like they had been since '57. And here's Pete Best actually describing that first night, December 17th, with a quote. We belted it out exactly as we had been doing in Hamburg, and you could physically feel the crowd gasp. It just silenced them. When we finished the first number, the place went into rapture. It just exploded. We took the roof off the place. It was the start of the onslaught. Wow. Even Neil Aspinall himself was knocked for a loop unexpectedly. He was quoted as saying about this night, they were so fucking good. That's a quote. And Beatles author and historian Mark Lewison said, Aspinall was a Beatles fan from this moment, as was everyone else at the Casbah. Boy, you want to talk about seminal and you want to talk about ground zero. Gosh darn, wow, man. You know, in researching this video blog, I'm a lifetime first-generation Beatles fan since '64, collector all my life. You know, in researching this, I just came to a dramatic conclusion that if I could go back in time and witness the Beatles on stage any one night in their entire career from '56 to '66, it would be this night. I would pick this night. It just must have been so great and seminal and so fun. Wow. Goosebumps time. Thanks a lot for dropping by. And I'll see you again for something much less important and cool soon. Take care and have a good day.